Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Carrie and this is Keep It Simple DIY. I am working on some freezer prep. I'm wanting to get a lot of the breads made that we'll use over the next 2 months. I am doing the Three Rivers Pantry Challenge this year, so I figured let's bake as much of the bread from scratch as we can. That way we don't have to go to the store and we're using what we have. Plus, I haven't used the sourdough starter in about a month. It'd been in the fridge. I did feed it. We're good to go. I actually had to separate into 2 containers, so here's some of it. The rest of it is behind me in that jar. I am going to be making 2 loaves of English muffin bread, or I might turn part of that into English muffins. I'm still deciding. That's what I'm going to start with. And so today I'm just going to mix some of the ingredients together. I've written a lot of the recipe on my lid in wet erase marker. That's one of my tricks. And let's start. So I think this is going to be a super simple one. It just needs 2 cups of milk, 1 cup of starter, and 4 cups of flour for day 1, and then we'll come back and finish it tomorrow. So here is almost 2 cups of water. I am going to use powdered milk, and so I need approximately 2/3 of a cup of milk. It doesn't have to be exact because milk comes in different percentages, so we are good with that. I will mix in the milk powder to the milk just to get it all combined before adding in the starter. And then I usually don't do cups for my starters. So this one actually called for 1 cup of starter, and so we're gonna use a cup measure. I don't typically do that, so we will see how this goes. Oh, this is everything in the bowl. Let me grab a spatula and just dump all this in. I typically do all of my sourdough by grams, and so this one being cups, I usually avoid anything that has cups just because then I have to get the cup dirty. But this time I decided, let's go for it. Let's give it a try. I'm very happy to be back in sourdough again. I posted a lot of sourdough recently, but I filmed those all during Thanksgiving week. And so realistically, it's been a long time since I've been doing anything really sourdough related. I'm going to mix the milk and the starter together just to get the starter all broken up before adding in the 4 cups of flour. I'm hoping with this English muffin bread that I can use it there's a few English muffin breakfast recipe casseroles that I like, and I figure if I make this bread, I could just use that and just slice it, and it'll be a lot quicker than making English muffins. So that's the goal with this bread. I'm really hopeful that it turns out well. Now, the problem is I don't know how much, so I'm gonna go a little bit light-handed on the flour because I know my flour is kind of packed, and so I don't want to put too much flour in. There's 3, and here's 4. So this is so simple. All I need to do is just incorporate this all together, and then I'm going to let it sit on the counter overnight, and then tomorrow I'll add a few more ingredients, and then it just needs to rise, and then we bake it. I've definitely noticed that my starter has gotten to be a lot more sour now that it's a bit more mature. It is not quite a year old, but it is coming up on a year here in February, like beginning of February actually. So we're in the beginning of January now, about a month ago, and the starter will be a year old. Okay, this one is ready. There's no stretch and folds for this. I'm just going to set it on the back counter till tomorrow. Next thing I'm going to do is make just a regular loaf. I'm actually going to double this and then I'll split it into tomorrow. And so I'm going to use my scale for this one, and I don't have my glass bowl. It's actually in the sink dirty. So I am going to start off with 100 grams of starter. Oh, we're a little high. I usually like to keep 50 grams of starter in the fridge because then when I feed it, I'll feed it 50 grams of water, 50 grams of flour, and then I'll have 150 grams, which is enough to do 2 regular loaves of bread, or I can do something that takes 100 grams and still have my 50. I have so much starter right now because I put it away with a lot of starter in it because I didn't want to make as many things as I thought I did last time I made it. So let's do this. Let's get 50 grams. 56, that's good enough. I'm going to get a different lid. This is my trick. I always weigh my starter when I put it in the fridge, and then I write with wet erase marker on my lid how much there is, so that way when it's time to take it out and feed it, I don't have to weigh it then. I am going to stick that in the fridge, and then it's ready for next time we need it. I'm just gonna stick that on so I have it. And now I'm going off of memory here, and I'm trying to remember exactly what I do. I think I usually do 350 grams. I think it's usually 350 grams of water, 500 grams of flour. So I'm going to do 700 grams of water. Okay, 702. I usually go way over, so I'm trying really hard to not completely overdo it here. 1,000 grams. That's what we're going for now. You know, I might as well just put this in here first. A little high, we'll take some out. All right, we're at 1,000 grams. I am going to add the salt in now. Actually, I should probably still use that. I think I'm gonna do 18 grams of salt. There's definitely debate on if you should or shouldn't put the salt in, but I'm going to put the salt in with the flour, not directly onto the starter, so I think we'll be okay. Okay. Now we'll mix it up, and then this will need to be stretched and folded a couple times this evening. And then I will shape it and then get it in the fridge. Oh, let's see. I think I'm gonna shape it into a batard. I've never done that before. And so the reason I'm gonna do that is because I don't have any clean bowls to put the bowl in. And I do have clean, oh, this is hard to do. I do have clean like bread pans to shape it in. I don't have a banneton. I've thought about it. I feel like it's kind of unnecessary though, and I see so many people whose bannetons just get moldy really easily just because of all the crevices. So I don't know, maybe one day I'll get them, but for now, I'm going without. All right, we are mixed together. I'm going to let this sit on the counter for about an hour, do some stretch and folds, about 3 times every 30 minutes after that first hour. And I just need to find something to put on top of it because I don't have a lid for this bowl. All right, next bowl I'm using is the KitchenAid bowl because that is the biggest bowl I have left. And I need to see how much starter I have so I can figure out what I want to do with it. I still have 2 sourdough bagels in the freezer. I don't have any loaves left, and I don't have any sweet bread, well, any sweet breads that are sourdough related. I don't know if I want anything sweet. I think, you know, it's been the holiday season, right? And the amount of sweets that I've eaten is a little bit ridiculous. So I'm thinking maybe just a regular old sandwich loaf and just go simple, do all loaves. I have 153 grams. So let me do some research, find a recipe, and then I'll show you what I decide. I actually decided I didn't need to research at all. I have a recipe written down here from, I don't know, it's just written down here that was down in my cabinet. It's a sandwich loaf, a regular enriched sandwich loaf. So we will then have English muffin loaf, regular sandwich loaf, and then 2 just sourdough like French loaves. So now for the tricky part. The sandwich loaf pan I want to use for this is bigger than the recipe calls for. And I have more starter than the recipe calls for. So I have 150 grams of starter, recipe calls for 100. I'm gonna see what I can do to 1.5 times this recipe in my head, and we'll see how that goes. So I need 300 grams of warm water, which then will be 450 grams of warm water. So close, 448. We're gonna call it, because I think I was a few over on the starter. I think that's close enough. And then I need 56 grams of sugar. There we go. 20 grams, well, let me take this thing out. switch my mixers around. Actually, you know, it really doesn't, I don't need either of these because I am going to do this in the mixer. I need 20 grams of extra virgin olive oil, which then will be 30 grams, 1.5ing it. And then 500 grams of flour, which then will be 750 grams. All right. And then the last thing I need is salt. I need 9 grams, so I think that's 13.5 or so. And so I'm gonna put that on top of the flour. I am going to get this in the mixer and cross my fingers. So this, since it's an enriched dough, I'm definitely going to use the mixer instead of doing stretch and folds. Now my mixer, you guys, I have the KitchenAid 5.5 quart stand bowl lift mixer, and it does not like thick doughs. So I just bought a new one that the specs look better. It's an off-brand. It's not supposed to be here until tomorrow, and so I won't be able to use it for this. I'm hoping it works well. If it doesn't, I think I'm gonna just go for either the Anscarum or the Bosch, but probably not soon because they are quite an investment. So let's get this on. All right, this dough is very silky. It is quite wet, but I'm assuming that after it sits overnight, it'll be easy to shape. At least that's what I'm hoping. All right, I've got my 3 bowls of dough now. I'm putting the recipe right by this one so I remember what it is. I did write regular on the front of this one. This is the one that we'll have to do stretch and folds on. And then this one is our English muffin. So these 2 just need to sit out overnight. I'll get a cover on that. And then we'll be back to stretch and fold this one in a little bit. It is time for our first set of stretch and folds. I just got my hand wet. I'm going to come in here, get my hand under the dough, pull it up, and fold it down. The first one is always the ugliest, and then they get much prettier after that. And I'm just going to do this until I feel the tension build, and then I'll know that it is good for the moment, and we'll let it go for another half hour. Okay. Let that sit for a little bit longer. We'll come back and we'll fold it again. The dough has now been sitting for about a half hour. I'm going to do the second stretch and fold. And I think I'm actually going to do this a little bit differently than I typically do. Usually I would stretch and fold this again and then stick it in the fridge overnight, but I would shape it before I put it in the fridge. And I think what I'm going to do is leave it out on the counter tonight to proof and then shape it in the morning. So we'll see how that goes. A little bit different of a process. I think that's what I did the first time I did this, but then it was really hard to score it. So I don't know, we will do that, shape it in the morning, and maybe we'll bake it, I don't know, tomorrow evening. I have a lot of things to bake in the morning tomorrow, and then I have somewhere to go in the afternoon. So I guess it all just depends on what time I wake up for how much I bake in the morning. So you can tell this stretch and fold is going way better than the one before. It's kind of sticking together better. And the dough now is definitely starting to get tough for me to stretch it. So I think we're good. I'm actually only going to do 2 stretch and folds. I was going to do 3, but I think we're... That was my reminder. I was going to do 3 stretch and folds. I think I'm only going to do 2 because I did just see a different process online. I think I'm going to try that instead, which is also why I'm leaving it out overnight. So I am going to put this on the back counter and we'll see it tomorrow. Good morning. It is time to shape the loaves. I have the regular dough here. And so I was going to make this into 2 batards, but then I realized that I need my other pan that's this shape, this one. I need that for the sandwich loaf. So instead I'm going to do 1 bowl and 1 batard. So I just wiped off my counter and I already got everything everywhere. But I am going to tip this dough out with just a little tiny bit of flour. And then I'll have to separate it in 2. Right down the middle this way will work. And let's see, I think I'm going to do the batard shape first. Is that what I want to do? Oh gosh, this is sticking a lot more than it. Let's see here. Maybe I'm going to lift it all first. That was a lot stickier than usual. I wonder if when I did my measurements, I didn't do them right. This is rice flour, by the way. Fold the two sides in on themselves. Goodness. See, this is where I get confused because this looks really long and it needs to be the other way. You know what? Maybe I'll make this one into the bowl because this is like what I'm used to, what I'm familiar with. Oh, now it's like too much. See, now there's definitely too much flour. Flour. This was definitely not my strongest time doing this. Okay. Oh gosh. Well, the bowl is now in there. So if I do a little bit in, and then a little bit in, I just don't get it. This was one method that I saw that said to go in, and then roll and roll and roll, and then you have your like batard, but I want it to be wider. Push down. Oh, maybe I can get it. Push it down. Roll it and push it. Get my hands there. Roll it and push it. Roll it, push it. All right, I think we're in business. Rolling it and pushing it is what I'm doing. Hands more floury. It's the first time for everything. Like, I want to build the tension, but okay, so push it, pinch these ends. I don't know if there's enough tension here for what I like, but we're gonna call that good. And I am going to make my hand more floury. Okay, that actually fits in there very nicely, so hopefully it turns out in a good shape. This is going to be interesting. This is a really wet dough. I'm already thinking I should have had way more flour down there. And okay, so there's other methods. Let me try a different method that's for stickier doughs. Just need to shape this more into an even rectangle. I'm trying all the new methods today. I've only ever shaped like a bowl before, so this is different. Okay, so one that I saw, oh goodness, was to fold the top down, then fold the corner in, and then fold this corner in. Okay? And then we're gonna fold this top down again. Fold this corner in, fold this corner in. And do that again. And then, oh goodness, we need to bring this up. I'm afraid this is gonna get stuck in the pan. I need to stitch it. Well, I'll just do it here. First try, you know, it's not perfect. We're just gonna stitch it again. This is definitely not a tutorial. I can definitely say that wet doughs are not my expertise. All right, at this point, oh geez, this is gonna get stuck. It's most definitely going to get stuck. All right, so I've got my recipe on here. It says I need 2 tablespoons of sugar, 1.5 teaspoons of salt, and 2 teaspoons of baking powder. So let's do 1.5 salt. 2 teaspoons of baking powder, which is interesting. I actually used active starter, so I'm not sure how necessary the baking powder is, but we'll add it just because if it's a texture thing, I want to make sure I have that right texture. And 2 tablespoons of sugar. I don't know if there's 2 tablespoons in here. 1. It says that we need to knead this for a few minutes, so I'm going to get most of this out of the way. And then try to mix some of that into the dough before I tip it out. Okay, we're not quite at 5 minutes, but I think that's about as much as it wants to do. Separate these into 2. And then I do need to get those pans oiled or buttered. Oh gosh. I'm just gonna simply roll this and hope that that works. I have really high hopes for this. This is English muffin bread. I'm hoping to make a bunch of casseroles with it. I'm going to get these super greased because I definitely don't want it to stick. It probably still will, but we can do the best that we can. This is definitely a real life trying things out for the first time. Definitely doesn't go as planned. Okay, let's see if I can get these in here. It's just funny how like much they loosen up after I do that. But then it's like right back to being good. Okay, there's one. My hands stiff. I'm like, can I keep this one together? Okay, that did better. And there's the other. And now the trick for this one, it's not really a trick, but we're gonna add some cornmeal to the top of it because it's English muffin bread. And English muffins have cornmeal on the bottom typically. Okay, I just need to cover these, and then all of these are sitting now for a couple hours until they have proofed, and we'll get them in the oven. Definitely a lot different methods than I usually do. My typical method is I do 3 stretch and folds at night on a regular sourdough loaf, and then I shape it at night and I put it in the fridge. And in the morning, I just cook it, and that's it. So a lot more steps that we're doing today, and hopefully those steps will pay off. It's now been a couple of hours, and all of these now will stay indented when I push them. So these are ready to go in the oven. I'm going to start with the 3 that are inside of these tins because I don't want them to stick. And I think if I get them in quicker, then they won't have as much time to stick. And then afterwards, we will get in the ones that need to go straight on the pizza pan. So I am going to just get them all in there. There they are. The pizza stone is in the oven getting warm, so it's ready when we need it. I'm going to close the oven and give them about 35 minutes. The English muffin breads just came out of the oven, and they actually came out really nicely out of the package, so that's fantastic. I definitely think it probably would have been better if I didn't have the rice flour on it, but they do look delicious. The sandwich bread, on the other hand, I didn't score it because it was so sticky and it kind of poofed. It's not even close to ready. It's only like 156 degrees. Bread's cooked when it's at 200 degrees, so I'm going to let that go for another 10 minutes or so. And after that, I can score our boule and batard and then get them going with some steam. I just took the sandwich bread out and got some water inside of my oven. So now I'm going to score these regular boules and then get them in the oven as well. There's that one. I hope these will both fit. They might be running up close against each other. Let's see the boule. Let's do one there, there. Okay. Here's the sandwich bread, not the prettiest, but hopefully it tastes good. And then here's what we're working with. I'm a little concerned that there's not enough room for the 2 of them. I think in the future I will not do this method again. I definitely like them being in the fridge overnight because then they're super firm when I go to stick them in the oven. They're kind of like flopping around right now. So I won't try this one again, but we'll see how they turn out. We have about 20 minutes to bake in there with the steam, and then I will take the steam out and we'll do another, I don't know, 10-15 minutes or so. These are definitely not the most pretty loaves I've ever made. I will for sure be putting them in the fridge for longer than just 10 minutes. I will do the overnight fridge method every single time from here on out because these are just real funny looking. All right, we did it. I now have 5 loaves of bread. These are the 2 English muffin breads. They turned out looking very cute. Next time I won't put as much rice flour on it though. This is the regular old sandwich loaf. I should have scored it, but it was so wet of a dough that I didn't think I'd be able to. I also could have gone in and scored it after it was partially baked, so I'll do that next time. And then I have 2 just regular old loaves, and I have mentioned it already, but I definitely think I will not be doing that method again. I will be putting them in the fridge overnight because they are so much easier to score and they just look so much better when they've been in the fridge. So ugly, but will still taste great, and we'll see what we make out of them. I'm not going to cut them open today. I'm just going to let them cool completely down, and then I'll use them over the next few months. Do you have any favorite bread recipes for your family, either sourdough or not sourdough? I used to make bread all the time just with the yeasted dough, and I haven't been doing that just because of the timing. And I really like the way that you start the sourdough the night before, and then the day of you just have to bake it. That really seems to flow with just like my natural rhythm, and the waking up early to put a yeasted dough in and let it rise twice, and then by the time you bake it's like later in the afternoon. I just like baking in the morning. So this is what I've been doing with sourdough, but if you have any of your favorite recipes, definitely let me know. I'd love to try them. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new here and haven't yet, please subscribe. I'd love to see you, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.